Hi, and welcome to the first video in our PowerShell Active Directory dashboard video series. This is the video series that I've been kind of talking about for the last couple videos that is coming. So we're actually finally starting on the project here. This is going to be a series with a couple videos for sure. And I'm also actually letting it open-ended for you guys to comment down below and let me know things that you guys would like me to add. If you guys are system administrators or playing around with Active Directory, let me know what kind of data you guys would like to see in your dashboard. And I can definitely add that into this project and add it into the dashboard that we're building. This way everyone gets to benefit, because if you need that data, chances are there's going to be a lot of other system administrators, including myself, that might actually need that data. And maybe I just overlooked something or didn't think about something to display to our users, which could be other system administrators, ourselves, because we're going to be using this tool as well, and anyone else on your IT team that would actually require this. Or maybe you're working for a group project for school or something. Maybe it is something that you would like to show them that this is actually something that you're able to do. So we're just going to show you guys what we're going to be building today anyways. So this is going to be a multi-part series, like I said, where really it's going to take a couple videos to really fully build this out. So this is the part that we're going to be building today. So we're really just getting the general forest information and the domain controllers for our Active Directory environment. So basically it gives you like a very quick overview of the Active Directory environment, what forest functional level it is, how many domains are in your environment, what the root domain is, what are the global catalogs in your environment, and then all the domain controllers, which actually give you the IP address, the name of the domain controller, whether or not it's enabled, the operating system that's actually installed on that server, and the forest that it's a part of, which of course for the forest, kind of a given because you are in this dashboard. And then we're going to be adding a lot of other information, similarly like password policies, locked out accounts, maybe like a event calendar of accounts created, maybe accounts deleted as well. We could probably fit that in as well. But let's go ahead and let's get started with just creating this, because just creating this will actually take us a little bit of time. We're going to be using everything that we've learned from our PSWriteHTML videos and a lot of the quick tips that have just recently come out with Active Directory. So let's go ahead and let's get started here. So we're just actually going to delete the HTML file here because that's what we're going to be recreating, and I don't need a copy because we're going to be building that fresh from here. So the first thing we want to do is actually create a variable for our forest name. So we're just going to create that variable name as a forest name, and we are going to put that as our forest name here, which for me it is jacked.ca. This would be anything that your Active Directory forest is called. What's really handy about putting that right at the top here is you can actually copy paste this script from any environment and put it into a new environment, change the forest name, and it will actually work. So this script, although you'll see in my video, we only have one domain controller, one domain. This actually does work if you have multiple domains, multiple domain controllers, multiple global catalogs. All of those will be listed. I actually put this in a production style environment as well, just to make sure that it actually does work. And we were able to pull back all the information from Active Directory. So it will actually work. It is not just limited to one domain controller. So the first thing we're going to do is actually grab the forest information. So we're going to go ahead and name our variable forest, and we're going to do a get AD forest on the identity of forest name. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is just look at what we actually get back here. So when we actually look at our forest variable, we're going to see that we actually get a decent amount of information back, as we've seen with the quick tip video as well. We've already seen these commandlets, but let's just go ahead and let's see these in action here. It's just taking a little bit of time to load. My virtual machine has been running a little bit slower today. So we're just going to go ahead and pause this and wait for it to come back. All right, so it is back. Actually, my domain controller had just actually turned off here. So we can actually run this script here. We should get the information back quickly. And now we can run what's in the forest. So we can actually see that we do get a lot of information back. We get the forest mode, which is the forest functional level. We get the name of our forest. We get the root domain. We also get the domain naming master, the schema master, and a bunch of different information. The domains that are located inside of this forest. So if you do have multiple domains, you will see them here, and your global catalogs. Once again, if you have multiple global catalogs, you will actually see them all here as well. So let's go ahead and let's just take a few pieces of information here and store them into different variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create another variable called domains, and we're going to make this equal to forest.domains. And we're going to name another one global catalog. And we're going to make that equal to forest dot global catalogs. And now we have our domains and we have our global catalogs. So this should be fairly good for us to start. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the domain controllers in just a little bit. But what I really want to do is kind of start off our HTML page, our PSWriteHTML page for our dashboard, and just really get the layout of that done, and then put some pieces of information in there. And then we're going to go ahead and grab all the domain controllers and then put that in there as well. So let's go ahead and let's create our new HTML. And we're going to make that with the online parameter. And we're going to give that a title text. And I'm going to put that title text here as just Active Directory Dashboard. And then we're going to put the file path here. And the file path that we're going to put here is just the file path to the current folder that I'm in here. And then instead of naming it that, we're going to name this AD dashboard.html. Perfect. And then we're just going to make sure that we do the show HTML parameter because we want it to open up automatically once I actually finish running the code. You don't actually need to do this if you are just pumping it out to an IIS server. You're just depositing that HTML file in there, and then your IIS server will serve it up. But instead of having to go into your web browser and opening up that file, you can just go ahead and do the show HTML. And as soon as you run your code, your default web browser will pop up with the page open, and you will actually be able to see your dashboard. So once we actually have our HTML page, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to create a new section here. So a new HTML section. And for this one, we're actually going to make it invisible. This will just make it look a little bit better because we want a top section and we want two sections inside of that section. All right, so we have our first section here. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to create another section inside of it. And for that one, we're going to have a header text. And we're going to make that header text be the forest information. And then we're going to go ahead and we're just going to go ahead and do an open and closing curly brackets in here. And then we can just do a new HTML panel inside of it. And we can actually leave that blank right away. And then right after the first nested section here, we're going to create another new HTML section. And then the header text for that, we're going to go ahead and create it as domain controllers. And then inside of that here, we're going to do a new HTML panel and just open and close here. So we have our two blank HTML panels. This is where we're going to be putting all the information that we're retrieving. And we actually have our generic layout now for our HTML page. So if we go ahead, we save that, we go ahead and we just run this, we will see it pop up, and there are our two boxes, our forest information and our domain controllers. So that is perfect. So just to give you guys a little bit of a visual, if we don't make this first section invisible, what happens is it ends up looking a little weird because you're going to have a section that's visible here wrapping around. If that's what you want and you want to give this another title just for your own sake, maybe just a little bit more separation. If you have multiple forests, maybe that could be an option as well. But I just don't want it in mine, so we are making it invisible. I just wanted to show you guys why we're making it invisible compared to if it was visible, how it would actually end up looking like. So perfect. So now that we have our basic forest information and our basic layout for our dashboard, we can actually go ahead and start putting in that information in here. So we can actually type HTML code directly into the new HTML panel script block. So what we're going to do here, the first line we're actually going to put in here is just a little p tag. And then we're going to do forest with a colon. And then we're going to put in the variable of forest name. And then right after that, we're just going to go ahead and close the p tag. So what the p tag is, if you guys aren't familiar with HTML, it is just using the greater than and lesser than symbols and putting a p inside of it. And then the closing tag is you just add a slash in front of the p, and that stands for paragraph. So it just gives it the formatting of a paragraph in your web page. So it's going to put it on its own little line. So we can actually go ahead and we can actually just run this code here just so you guys can actually see what it looks like. So there is what we just typed out. Now it is very close to the edge, which again, it is again just a very more like visual aspect of things. But what we can actually do here is on the new HTML panel is we can actually make a margin. And then we're just going to make our margin here 5 pixels. I usually find that that is usually pretty good in our case. So if we go ahead and we run that, it gives it just a little bit of space here. And it just makes it a little bit more legible, but you can definitely increase it. Even 10 is not that bad. If we go ahead and look at that, I actually do like the 10 quite a bit. We're going to leave it for 10 here. We're just going to go with that for now. Perfect. So once we actually have our forest, what we want to really display now is the forest functional level. So what I kind of start doing is with the p tags and everything, I just kind of copy paste. So we're going to put forest functional level, and that is actually stored in the forest variable. So what we're actually going to need is we're just going to need to wrap that in a variable wrapper and put forest dot forest mode. Now you can keep it pretty consistent here. Instead of specifying the forest name right off of basically how the user has entered it in the script, we can actually reference forest and then put name. And then this way it's a little bit more standardized. We can see the variable wrapper everywhere. So that is something that I would actually do. So now what we need to do is list off all the different domains. So we can actually remove this variable wrapper here, and we can put domains here. And now we're going to have to put all the different domains in a list. Now, I don't like to order the list because it kind of makes it seem like there is an order to the list, but since we're going to be listing off what the root domain is, I don't really care what order the domains are that I'm listing. I'm just grabbing them from Active Directory and displaying them. So what we're actually going to go ahead and do is we're going to create a unordered list. And we do that by creating an unordered list tag, which is just UL instead of P. And then what I like to do is just right off the bat, once I create a tag, I like to create the closing tag as well. This way I don't forget to create it. Now, HTML is a very forgiving language. If you don't remember to close off your tag, you won't get any error messages, but the page won't look the way that you want it to look like. You might have some weird visual things going on with how it looks. So once we have our unordered lists in the middle of the two tags, what we're actually going to do is we're going to do a for each loop, and we're going to do for each domain in domains. So here we're grabbing the domains that we've grabbed from our forest, and we're going to be looping through these. So for each domain, what we're going to want to do is actually create a list item. So this is going to be an item in our unordered list. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to put our li tag, which is the list item. Once again, we put right away the closing tag so we don't forget about it. And then in here, all I'm going to do is we're going to reference with our variable wrapper. I just like using the variable wrapper. Just makes it very easy to read where your variables are. So we're going to put the domain right inside of that list item. So we can actually go ahead and see how this looks like already. So if we go ahead and we run this code, there it is. So we already have our 2 paragraph tag, actually 3 paragraph tags. And then here is our unordered list. If you have more than one domain, you're going to see multiple things here. So in another environment that I ran this, we saw 3. In another environment, we saw 5. So it really depends on how many domains you have. But this script will work if you have 1 or many domains. So you don't have to adjust anything. If you only have 1, still use the for each loop because you might add another one in the future and you won't have to change your dashboard to adapt to that. All right, so after our domain here, what we want to really display is the root domain. So we're going to go ahead and copy our p tags here, and we're just going to put root domain, and we're going to reference the forest variable again, and we are going to reference the property of root domain. And then what we're going to do is actually copy the p tag for domains and the unordered list because we're actually going to need that once again. But instead of doing domains, we are going to put in global catalogs. So we want to list off all of our global catalogs to the user. And what I like to do is for each catalog in the what did I name that variable? In the global catalogs variable, we are going to list them in here. So we are creating the unordered list, and we are listing off all the global catalogs in here. So if we actually go ahead and we run this now, we will actually see. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. It might not be super clear for you guys over on YouTube here. But here we have our 3 first p tags, our first unordered list, our root domain, our global catalog, and then our other unordered list. So once again, if you have multiple domains, it's all right. This script, because we're using the for each statements, if you have multiple domains or multiple global catalogs, these will actually all be listed here. And we can see our forest functional level is Windows 2016. So if you have a 2012 R2 environment, it will actually be here 2016 or so on. Whatever forest functional level you have, it will actually be displayed there as well. So that is the first section for the forest information. Now we want to go ahead and be able to list off all the domain controllers. Now you can do it in a very similar fashion. What I was finding is if you have a lot of domain controllers, it can get a little bit messy to list them all in a list. So what I actually like to do in this case is I like to use a table. But first we need to go ahead and fetch the domain controllers. So let's go ahead and let's do that first. We're going to do that at the top right after we fetch the global catalogs and the domains. We're going to go ahead and fetch the domain controllers. So I create this variable called all domain controllers. and we're going to make that equal to an empty array. Now, if you do have a lot of domain controllers, we've already learned that array lists definitely perform better than arrays. So we can definitely make that as well. And we can easily do that just by doing a square bracket in front of it, do system.collections.arraylist. So that is something that you can actually do as well. Or if you just want to keep it as an array because you know that you won't have that much information going into it, in this case, I don't think that you would ever encounter an environment where you would have so many domain controllers to where an array list would be beneficial, but that could just be me not ever experiencing that large of an environment. But I think that if you have 1,000+ domain controllers, that's probably a very, very big environment, but I don't even know if those type environments exist. But let's keep going here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all the domain controllers. So in order to do that, we're going to need our domains variable again, because we need to loop through each of our domains and grab the domain controllers. So we're going to do a for each once again, for each domain in domains. And we're going to go ahead and do an open and closing curly brackets. And then we are going to go ahead and grab the domain controllers. So I'm going to create a variable called domain controllers. And we're going to do a get-ad domain controller. And the server we are going to be grabbing it from is going to be domain. And make sure to always put a filter star. This way you grab all the domain controllers. This was in our quick tip. If you don't put the filter, it will only grab one, which will limit your results. And since we want to grab all the domain controllers, we want to put a filter star in there. And then what I like to do, just to be a little bit more specific here, is we can actually just do a plus in this case. I believe that that would actually work. That should work here. Let's just test it out. Run all of that. Oh, no, we actually, because it is an array list, we need to use the .add here. And we're just going to add the get AD domain controller. When you're adding it in, what I like to do is just put that in a variable wrapper inside of there. So if we actually go ahead and we run that, it is still not working here. So let's just go ahead. It is not, and that would be why. I do not have this named correctly. All domain controllers .add. If we go ahead and run that here, you guys probably saw that before I did. Let's just make sure that our domain controllers seem okay. And it does seem okay here, so that is perfect. So all we want to do now is actually just say all domain controllers table. So we're going to create a new variable. Now this is just to really limit the different properties. Now you can do this in the for each and just pipe this right off the bat to a select statement. I like to keep it separate, just this way I can always modify it and I keep all the original data from the commandlet in case I need to do something with it later on that I don't know about yet. So all domain controllers, and we're going to hit, we're going to do a select name IPv4 address, domain, host name, enabled, operating system, and forest. Now, of course, you can add any properties that you think that you would need in your dashboard. These are the ones that I really like to grab first, but you can add the SSL port, you can add the LDAP port, you can add is global catalog, is read only. You can definitely add a lot more information into this. I just don't really need to see all that information. So I figured to just do it this way for now. So once we have all that information in here, what we can do is in our HTML panel, all we need to do now is create a table. And then our data table that we're going to be using is going to be the all domain controllers table. And what we're going to do is just look at what it looks like right now. So if we actually go ahead and run this, and it's just loading up for us right now. So there is the information. So we actually have our domain controller, and we can actually expand it to see all the data that's inside of that object. If you're zoomed out, you're going to be able to see a little bit more on the one line. And then when you expand it out, it's going to have a little bit less. So that is something to consider. The order that you're doing your select statement is the order that's going to show up in that table. So that's why I always like to do name and IPv4 first at the very least, because those are really probably the two major pieces of information that I really like to have on my domain controllers if I'm looking at them. Now, the only thing that I like to do for the dashboard anyways is I don't like to have all these buttons and all these footers everywhere. I like to actually remove those. So what we're going to go ahead and do, we're just going to close this. And in our table here, we're going to do a hide footer and hide buttons. And if we go ahead and we run this now, you're going to see it just looks a little bit cleaner, especially in a dashboard environment. It just looks a little bit better without all those buttons. And then even when you're zoomed in, you don't have those big buttons that just kind of sidetrack you from the actual data that you want people to be looking at. Now, of course, this does remove your ability to export them into a CSV if you do want to have that ability, and give that to people to be able to export the list of domain controllers to a CSV or a PDF or something. Definitely show the buttons, but in our case, we're just going to remove the buttons and just say that the dashboard should be accessed through the web. You shouldn't be pulling the information into an Excel file. If you want the export of the domain controller, you should be asking your system admin to pull that out, or you can simply take a screenshot of the dashboard. But that is the dashboard so far for the Active Directory dashboard. So once again, we're going to be adding quite a lot of things in here. We're going to be adding our password policy. We're going to be adding locked out accounts. We can add in a bunch of different things that you guys ask for as well. So please let me know in the comment section what you guys would like to see in this dashboard for Active Directory, and we can add it in. We can add in the calendar for PSWriteHTML. We can add in tons of different things. We can add in charts for the amount of accounts that are created, maybe by day for the last week or something. I'm sure you guys can think of a bunch of things that you guys would like to see in your dashboards. So let me know if you guys have any questions on this video. Please let me know on the comment section down below as well. I'm thinking of also putting this dashboard, once we're all done the series, I'm going to put it up on the GitHub, and then the GitHub repository, I will put a link in the description down below so you guys can go and grab the code. As long as you guys have PSWriteHTML, you guys can just copy paste the code, change the forest name, and it will work for your environment. Thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Also, be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video in the series comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.